Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I am glad to welcome back Lee Harris from Blue Marine Travel for the weekly travel update. How are you, Lee?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks, Ria. Yourself?
Great, great. Things are easing up around the world, so that's kind of exciting. I mean, we are seeing sort of pockets of reoccurrence of the COVID virus, but I think governments are sort of responding a lot quicker than they did the first time round. So hopefully it's just pockets and it won't revert back to an entire lockdown as we have seen across the state of the world in the past.
Yeah, there certainly seems to have been this week anyway. Definitely more good news than bad news with regards to travel for the crew. So that's definitely positive signs once more.
Guaranteed. Well, what's going on with the EU? They've reviewed their safe list.
Yes, they have this week. They reviewed the safe list of the countries allowed to enter the Schengen zone. After careful review, it was decided that both Serbia and Montenegro would be taken off of the list due to the increasing number of new COVID cases that they've had the previous 2 weeks. With the removal of the two aforementioned countries, it now leaves 13 on the official safe list. I know we gave the list out the first time it was announced. I'll give the new updated list now. The 13 countries are Algeria, Australia, Canada, China, Georgia, Japan, Morocco, New Zealand, Rwanda, South Korea, Thailand, Tunisia, and Uruguay. However, it is worth noting that despite China being on the list, travel from the country to the EU will only be allowed if Chinese authorities reciprocate the agreement. However, at this point, China has made it perfectly clear that they have no intention of opening its borders to the EU citizens at the moment. One other thing worth noting with regards to the meeting held this week was that the USA was not mentioned or even discussed in allowing their citizens to enter the EU due to the increasing number of cases still arising in the country.
Well, Montenegro, at the beginning of the entire pandemic, and actually well within a month, maybe even 2 months of it all sort of kicking off, they were COVID free.
I know it's a strange decision because if you look at the number of cases, it's not a crazy amount compared to other countries that are allowed in. Take, for instance, the UK. We go back to the UK a lot, who have been hit quite hard on it. The cases there are considerably higher than what Montenegro have got. So, there's also a political stance, I would imagine, and a tourism stance, and what benefits are going to bring attached to the decisions that they're making.
Well, I know that in Spain, there's a lot of places that are literally shutting down certain areas for the simple fact that the British are coming in and creating a bit of havoc. And that's unfortunate. It's like you said, I mean, the stats, according to the UK and the US, are quite similar.
Exactly right. It's clearly not one size fits all, shall we say, with regards to the EU and who they're going to let in and who they're not.
I guess there's a lot of businesses that are suffering straight across the board, so they have to sort of consider that as well and how they're going to increase, money really is what it comes down to.
Indeed. Yeah, it certainly seems that way anyway.
So what's happening in South Africa now? We've been talking a lot about repatriation, and they did have a very significant lockdown there.
They did. It's still ongoing. There's still no scheduled flights in, but we have some good news again this week with regards to South Africa. We've been advised that there are now 2 more repatriation flights heading back into South Africa. KLM have announced 1 into Cape Town and also 1 into Johannesburg on the 31st of July and the 1st of August, respectively. KLM have also announced a flight departing from Johannesburg back into Europe on the 2nd of August. It is important to note, especially with the 2 inbound flights to South Africa, that the selling of these are usually cut off at least a week beforehand, and this is to allow the local government to arrange paperwork and quarantine places for the crew. If anybody's got any questions, please feel free to reach out to Blue Marine Travel for any further information. We can help with these flights. I will just say they are getting booked up quick. They were only released on Friday, but they are getting booked up quick. So we would recommend any crew looking to travel back home or to work to make arrangements sooner rather than later to avoid disappointment. And just one other part on South Africa, which literally the information has only just got to us in the last couple of hours. And it's with regards to South Africans returning back to the country on the repatriation flights. they can now apply to self-isolate rather than go into the mandatory quarantine. Like I said, we've only got the information literally the last couple of hours, so the details are still a little sketchy. But what we do know so far is that they have to apply for the necessary consent at least 72 hours before the journey begins. And they have to email the General of Health for the consent. What we also know is that applications have to include proof of suitable premises, contact details, and the itinerary for the passengers preceding 30 days prior to arrival in South Africa. And I'll just stress at this moment in time, the self-isolation is not guaranteed, and it is down to the discretion of the officials concerned. And if the self-isolation consent is refused, the person will have to remain in a mandatory quarantine at the state's expense.
Well, I mean, that is kind of good news. It's at least, I can imagine being in mandatory quarantine is something that isn't as comfortable as at least self-quarantine.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Common sense is taken hold slightly. If people come back off these flights and they've got no symptoms, then if they can guarantee they're going to be in self-isolation, then I think it's definitely a better way to go.
Now, the flight that is going out of South Africa, I know last week there was a site that you had to go to in order to register for the possibility of getting on that flight. Is there a need to do that again?
No, with the flight coming out, people can contact us, or they can even go directly onto the KLM, klm.co.za. It has to be the South African website, so it's got to be www.klm.co.za, and the flights for the 2nd of August are currently showing on there. If people are a little bit wary, again, feel free to contact us. We can help them with those. And also the repatriation flights back to South Africa. Again, please feel free to contact us. It is an area that we can help at this moment in time.
Excellent. So what's going on in India? You said that we were talking off air and you were mentioning something about India as well.
Yeah, so that's another area that has been hard hit with the border closures and restrictions. So it's been really difficult again for Indian crew either to get to work or even to get home from work. But there has been a little bit of good news this week with the announcement that the Indian government has started creating air bubbles with the US and France. United Airlines have been given permission to operate 18 flights between India and the US from July the 17th to July the 31st. These will include flights to Newark and San Francisco, and Air France have also been approved to operate 28 flights into India between July 18th and August the 1st. It's also been announced that the Indian government are also in advanced talks with both the UK and Germany to make similar arrangements.
And the Maldives, what's going on there?
Yeah, so even good news there as well, because I know there's still crew and yachts that are out in the Maldives. So this week, the Maldives finally reopened its borders to international travellers. Qatar Airways landed at the main international airport on Wednesday, the 15th of July. Just to say, that's the first international flight carrying passengers since March the 27th, when the country went into lockdown. So yeah, a long time since they've had passengers arriving in. Moving forward, Qatar, Emirates, Etihad, and Sri Lankan Airlines have all got scheduled flights operating July and August into the country. It is worth noting, however, passengers are required to wear face masks on the flight and when they get to the airports, and they also have to complete an online health form prior to arrival.
Now, the wearing of masks on the airlines, as well as the health reports, is that pretty much straight across the board right now?
Yeah, now it is. Yeah, I would say 95% of airlines are expecting people to wear face masks. And to be honest, it's not worth risking not taking one with you, because there is the chance that they may refuse you boarding if you've not got a face mask. I know the repatriation flights with Canada we were talking about with South Africa, they are adamant that people wear face masks. They won't provide them, so if you don't have one and you turn up, you won't get on the flights. So I don't think at this moment in time there's any point in risking not having one, because like I said, 95% expect it anyway.
Well, and just taking a look at the state of the world right now, I do notice that we are seeing some easing of restrictions, especially flight-wise. Do you think that it's going to be 6 months or a year before we start seeing air travel return to the way it was prior?
Now, if I'm going to put my professional head on, and my hopes are that it's going to be sooner rather than later, I've got to say, and I think that there's, like I said, there's definitely shoots of improvement and hopes of optimism going forward, because we're seeing like these little air bubbles are opening up. Okay, it's not normal, but it's definitely a lot better than what we've been seeing for the last couple of months. So there's definitely reasons for optimism. 6 months, maybe a little soon, I think, possibly, especially with the countries who are a lot more stricter, say New Zealand, Australia, South Africa. I don't think we're going to be seeing the normal as it was prior to COVID for quite some time, but it's going to get a lot better, I think, anyway.
And the likelihood that masks are going to be mandatory carrying on into the future?
Me personally, I think it's going to be akin to when you used to be able to smoke on planes. You know, it wasn't a taboo subject. You could smoke on a plane, and then all of a sudden that blanket ban came in. I could possibly see face masks being used the same way. I honestly believe it's going to be that much of a change going forward, and it could be mandatory on most airlines, even after COVID has been put in, has been eradicated from most places.
And with the United States, I mean, that is just a hotbed right now. What is going I don't even know what to say about it, to be absolutely honest, because the cases every day, and you see it hitting the news every day. There's more and more deaths per day, and there's more and more cases arriving per day. What countries are stopping any flights to and from the US?
I don't think it's so much that they're stopping the flights. I mean, flights are operating from the US into Europe, even though they won't take US passengers. The flights are still operating. I mean, obviously, we know that the EU won't have US tourists in at the moment. But it's difficult to say exactly what countries are. You know, it has to be. You have to look at it on a case by case basis. And not only that, it's sometimes as well you have to look at the countries, because it may not necessarily be that it's a blanket ban on US nationals. It may just be that if they're coming from the US. So say if you've got a US national in New Zealand or Australia or whatever, it may be that they'll be allowed in the country because they've not been in the US, say, the prior 14 days. So it's difficult to give, a one answer to each country, because each one differs slightly. There are slight different nuances between each one, depending on where they're coming from as well. So it is really a case by case basis that you have to look at it.
Well, it is, spending a lot of time on social media as I do, people are looking to sort of circumnavigate any flight bans. So they're trying to figure out ways that they can go from the US to, say, for example, England, and then from England into the EU. Or, they're trying to figure out all sorts of ways that they can travel to where they want without, losing their vacation time or their jobs, etc. You are tracked. There is no way, or is there?
Again, it would have to be on a case by case basis. I would hate to give some information here, and then lo and behold, it be incorrect. Because the information that comes from countries changes on a day by day basis. Literally, if anybody has got any queries or itineraries that they're looking at, feel free to send them. They can send them in to us, and we can look at them and we can see if we can do anything for them. We can't guarantee anything, obviously, what with regards to, I know people have said about maybe coming into the UK and then flying onwards. The issue there is obviously you'd have to do your 14-day quarantine in the UK. I know it's going to be scrapped for certain countries coming up the next couple of weeks. So it's not as easy as saying I'm going to fly to this country here and then I'm going to fly into Europe, because obviously as well they'll take into consideration the countries you've been in for the past 14, 21 days as well. So it's not as easy as saying, I'll just fly to this country and then I'll fly onwards. It unfortunately doesn't work like that.
Well, that being said, though, crew, if you do have a job, there are exemptions.
Indeed, yeah. For seafarers, there are exemptions with regards to entering EU. So the ban with regards to the US, the crew, seafarers are exempt, so they are allowed in. And also, if they're coming to the UK, they don't have to do the 14-day quarantine.
That is great news, because, for the last few months, I know, especially over social media, so many crew were worried The one thing is that a lot of crew would tend to come to Europe throughout the summer season in order to dock walk and to look for work. That is not possible at the moment,
No, I mean,
generally speaking.
yeah, generally speaking, no. I mean, if they're not coming into work on a yacht, then yeah, they wouldn't be out. They wouldn't be allowed in for tourist reasons. No.
Wonderful. Well, Lee, is there anything that you think we should know prior to our meeting again next week?
I think we've covered quite a lot of stuff today. So it's no, I'm all happy and it's all good. So looking forward to again next week, same time, same place.
Excellent. Well, once again, you've given us a lot of great information, and we do look forward to this every week because, as we both know, the world is changing every single day, and you never know what's going to happen again tomorrow. So it's always good to have you on board.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. Once again, it's been Lee Harris from Blue Marine Travel. You've been watching another episode of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I have been your host. Please tune in again.